Hey guys, today we are going to begin our making line plots and interpreting data lesson. And we're going to begin on page 553. So if you can, have out your workbook, turn to 553. If I would prefer you have your whiteboards out as well as a marker, or if you don't have those, have a clean sheet of paper and a pencil as we go through this. So making line plots and data, you guys have been through this in multiple grade levels. In fifth grade, we just kind of make it a little bit harder because we go by fractions. So let's start. You don't have to do this, but let's look at a couple of things that I want you guys to understand. This would be an example of a line plot you'd have seen in fourth grade. So we're dealing with whole numbers here. The first thing I want you guys to figure out is number one, there is a title here. And there's also something that tells us about the measurements of the line plot, okay, or the number line. So this number line is showing the height in inches for things that are being measured. The next thing I want you guys to notice is the numbers that are listed. So I have three numbers listed. I have 0, 4, and 8. Now, all these lines in between here, don't have a number attached to them. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is actually take those and figure out what numbers should be there. The easiest way I like to do this is number one, if we can figure it out by just looking at it, that's awesome. But I like to see, okay, I'm going from 0 here to 8. Let's count and see how many lines are there. Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, what that tells us is each one of these equals 1. So I always like to go ahead and label them. I did that but wrong, didn't I? So this would be a 5, 6, 7, and 8. So each one of these is 1. Now it's going to get a little harder as we move through because of the fractions. That is okay. Looking at the x's here, this would mean normally there's a key that tells us like x equals 1 or x equals 10, something along those lines. So we would need to make sure we understand what every x means. Again, so we have title, we have information. We need to know what all of the number line, we need to know what all those numbers, and then we got to figure out what each x is worth. Okay, so those are the basics. So let's go ahead and get started here. On page 553, here's our question for today. Mrs. Mary's class weighs tomatoes of different sizes and types. They weigh each tomato to the nearest 1/8 pound. The results are shown in the line plot below. What is the difference between the weights of the heaviest tomato and the lightest tomato? So one more time. Mrs. May's class weighs tomatoes of different sizes and types. They weigh each tomato to the nearest 1/8 pound. The results are shown in the line plot below. What is the difference between the weights of the heaviest tomato and the lightest tomato? All right, so I'm going to help you guys get started here. Now, a couple of things. I'm going to just underline what they want us to know. What is the difference between the weights of the heaviest tomato and the lightest tomato? And I'm going to circle a keyword here. The word difference should tell us that this is a subtraction problem because the difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. So now we know that we're going to subtract. And what are we subtracting? It says the heaviest tomato and the lightest tomato. So we have heaviest here and we have lightest here. So we just got to figure out what's the difference between those two tomatoes. Now we have tomato weights here. This shows us tomato weight in pounds. Again, they don't have an X, but I'm going to go ahead and help you out. X equals 1 tomato. And we've got to figure out what each line here equals. Okay, so like I have blank lines. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 blank lines here. So let's go ahead and figure out that. So let's start the first way. The first way, I'm going to count from 0 to 1. I'm going to see how many lines are there. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines. Well, if I have 8 lines between 0 and 1, that would automatically tell me that each line is worth 1/8. So each one of these lines is worth 1/8. The other way I can do it is I'm going to look at these 3 numbers here. And specifically, I want to figure out what that number is. Could I, think about this, do 1/4 divided by 2 because I am looking for what is half of 1/4 there. And that would also give me the same answer of 1/8. So yes, I could do 1/4 because this is a fourth. I am looking for half So 1/4 divided by 2 equals 1/8. Now, once we do that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and do these. So that's 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8. Go ahead and mark those in. And I also want you to go ahead and finish answering the question. So again, what is the difference between the weights of the heaviest tomato and the lightest tomato? We now have numbers in here, so you should be able to subtract the lightest tomato from the heaviest. So go ahead and do that. Pause the video, and then we'll resume once you're done. All right, so let's take a look at this. So we already have our numbers. We know what we're doing. We're subtracting. We're subtracting the heaviest and the lightest tomatoes. So I would have 3/4 minus, what is that, 1/8? Because my heaviest tomato is right here. My lightest tomatoes are right there. Now, I could do some things to make this easier. I could, instead of having these fractions, I could make this, so this is 1/8. And now I have 2/8, 3/8. This would be 4/8, 5/8. This would be 6/8. And this would be, sorry about that, 7/8. All right, so again, I have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8. I like to do that because number one, it gives me a common denominator to work with. But number two, when I'm doing things like this up here, I don't have to change anything. I already have it. So 3/4 is the same as 6/8. So I now have 6/8 minus 1/8, and that's easy subtraction for us. All right. So the difference between the heaviest and the lightest tomatoes in Mrs. May's class is 5/8. So I'm going to read the question one more time to make sure that we understand everything that I just went through, and then also go over the answer. So Mrs. May's class weighs tomatoes on different sizes and types. They weigh each tomato to the nearest 1/8 pound. The results are shown in the line plot below. What is the difference between the weights of the heaviest tomato and the lightest? The heaviest is here. The lightest is here. We know that these are eighths. So we do 3/4 minus an eighth. We know that 3/4 equals 6/8. So 6/8 minus an eighth equals 5/8. All right, let's go ahead and move on. If the scale of the line plot, and you don't have to do anything for this, I just want to talk about it. If the scale for the line plot is 1/8, why are the numbers 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and 1 on the line plot? I'm going to go ahead and give you that answer. They are what we call benchmark fractions. And what we do with benchmark fractions is they are usually like half or half of half. And we don't usually go further than that, but they're fractions that most people notice. They are fractions that, oh, I can say this is more than a half, this is less than a half, just because of background knowledge that you have. So an eighth is not a fraction that we are usually familiar with. We're usually familiar with 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4. One, mostly because of money, quarters and dollars. But I did want to go ahead and hit on that those are benchmark fractions. All right, now on page 555 and 556, I want you guys to do numbers 2 and 3. Numbers 2 and 3. I'm going to go over them quickly. I'm going to want you to pause the video and then come back and do them. Number 2 here says, look at the line plot. What is the scale? How do you know? When they're talking about the scale, they're talking about these empty numbers here. Okay, so you need to figure out what those empty numbers were. I do want to point to you that this is 0, and that is 1/2. Okay, that is not 1/2, that is 1/2. So keep that in mind as you go through. So you got to figure out what the scale is there. And then number 3, this looks very similar to what we did earlier. Mr. Lee's class weighs apples of different sizes. They weigh each apple to the nearest 1/16 pound. The results are shown in the line plot below. What is the difference between the weights of the heaviest apple and the lightest apple? Again, so we're looking for the difference, which means we're subtracting. We're looking at the heaviest. We are looking at the lightest. And we're going to find the difference between them. So go ahead. Go ahead and do number 2. Go ahead and do number 3. Pause the video while you do, and then come back and check your answers. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get at this and go and get our answers. So looking at the line plot, what is the scale? How do you know? So I'm going to start, and I'm going to do two different ways here. I'm going to count the tallies first, and then I'm going to use a little bit of division with fractions here. So I'm going to start at 0. And from 0 to a half, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 tallies. Well, last time it said that if we had 8 tallies, it was an eighth for each one. But the problem is that we start with 0 and we end with a half here. Now, if I have 8 tallies on one half, how many tallies would I have on the other half? Well, that would be 8 more, and 8 plus 8 is 16, which means that each one of these tallies is going to equal 16ths, or a 16th. The other way I could do this is looking at these three things right here. I see that this tally is a halfway between 0 and an eighth, so I can take 1/8 divided by 2. I know that my answer is going to be a fraction, and I divide it by 2, it's going to be 1/16. So between each tally, again, it tells us that they are 1/16. If I know that they're all 1/16, I'm going to go ahead and label all of them. I'm going to, even if they're already labeled, I'm going to relabel them with 16ths. What I mean by that, so I have 1/16, 2/16, 3/16, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8/16. And let me go ahead and erase this. I want to show you guys this. So understand, guys, I'm not changing the fraction. 1/2 and 8/16 are equivalent fractions. So not changing anything. I'm just making them all have the same denominator because it makes it easier for me to add and subtract. So that's all we have to do here is we just had to figure out that the scale is going by 16ths. So your answer should be 16ths or going by 1/16. So let's go ahead and look at the next question. It's going to help us here. This is the exact same scale that we're using on the other page. So I'm going to go again, mark it. I'll leave an eighth. All right. And again, looking at these, I should be able to tell, and I will go back and do this. So this is 2/16, 4/16, 6/16, and 8/16 down below it. So let's read this question one more time, and then we'll go ahead and answer it quickly. Mr. Lee's class weighs apples of different sizes and types. They weigh each apple to the nearest 1/16 pound. The results are shown in the line plot below. What is the difference between the weights of the heaviest apple and the lightest? So I am directly looking at the heaviest. I am looking at the lightest, and I need to figure out what is the difference. So I need to subtract the lightest from the heaviest and figure out like what is all of this area in here. I'm trying to figure out what is my range or what is the difference between those two. So I'm going to take 8/16. I'm going to subtract 1/16, and my answer would be 7/16. So 7/16 is the difference between the heaviest and the lightest. This is not hard lesson. I do expect you guys to be able to do this. You'll get a little bit more practice here in a couple minutes. So with that being said, let me go ahead and go through the rest of your day with you. Okay, you've already done multiply fractions 1 and 2. That's already done. We have done this. We have done this. So the next thing that you're going to do is you have a teacher assigned lesson. You know what? I'm going to switch these two right here. So I want you to do, you know what? No, we're good. You're going to do the teacher assigned lesson, line plots with fractions. It is an iReady lesson. It's already been assigned to you. Please do that. It will count for minutes in a lesson passed. So if you need that last lesson passed right there before break, make sure you do that. There is online practice. It's called Line Plot Practice. It's just getting familiar with line plots again, taking us back from 5th grade all the way to 3rd. Daily Math Day 15. Don't forget to get your math facts done. Your iReady My Path. 2 lessons passed a week this week. Make sure that you have your 35 minutes. And your extra credit is due today. So if you have that done, please make sure it is in the black bin in the back of my desk. And make sure your name is on it, please. And I will get that extra credit taken care of. If you guys need anything, go back, rewatch this video. If not, hope you have a good day. Have a good weekend. And I will see you guys soon.